Well, welcome to the Relational Experts' third podcast of Your Relationship Makeover. We are Poppy and Geoff Spencer with you today on January 17th to share the incredible gifts we received with our day spent with the wonderful Jack Canfield last month in the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia.
Yes, the chicken soup for the soul guy. You know who he is. Anyway, hi and welcome. In our premiere podcast on January 3rd, we introduced Your Relationship Makeover, and we conducted what we called your emotional checkup. We also shared several stories of clients with whom we've worked and their goals and results. And last week, we revealed our trademark communication tool, the emotional clock. And we shared what happens when people get stuck in an emotional Bermuda Triangle and how to avoid becoming marooned in that dangerous place. So one of the things is that we wanted to talk about is like, people ask us all the time, how did you come up with the emotional clock? You know, how did that happen?
Well, it happened in the writing of our wonderful story of our journey, our love story, 1 billion seconds, available on Amazon, our 32 years apart. But Poppy and I were looking when we looked at what took place in our journey and how we just messed up on some very simple communication skills. We looked at what happens to people. How do people, when they are in challenges, what takes place? What are the decisions that they go through? What things do they, if they don't make decisions, if they don't communicate, what takes place? How do these issues build and build and build?
And often it's limiting beliefs that absolutely, destroy communication and break down relationships.
And fear. It's typically just the idea of fear. They're afraid to bring up a topic because the idea of bringing up a topic is just too scary. Oh, gosh, what if I bring this up and she gets upset? What if she doesn't really want to be with me? What if?
Right. So today's podcast of Your Relationship Makeover is called Sack Your Limiting Beliefs. And we chose that verb specifically because we're huge football fans, especially my team, the Green Bay Packers. And we just want to take a little bit of a time out here. This is the 2-minute warning here. We're going to talk about limiting beliefs. And, one of my heroes is Aaron Rodgers, number 12 on the Green Bay Packers, the quarterback. And, in the first part of the season, he was not doing well. The team was not doing well. And I think they had
a 4-game losing streak.
They had a 4-day losing streak that every commentator in the world talked about. And so
Aaron's all through.
He's
coach
finished.
Needs to be fired.
The coach needs to be fired. All these things. And so everybody else's limiting beliefs were imposed on Aaron Rodgers and Randall Cobb and Devontae Adams and all these other great players and Jordy Nelson, our little hero that we hope he'll come back. And so finally, somebody said, they kept pounding him. What are you going to do? How do you account for this 4-game losing streak? And he said, merely, we're going to run the table. And it was like,
he said, you'll never make the playoffs. There's no way you can do it. And he said, well, yeah, if we run the table from this point on, we can not only make the playoffs, but we can go all the way.
And I loved that. And it was kind of a way to stop all those voices. Now, those were voices that everybody in the world could hear, but we have voices in our own heads that we need to get sacked and get rid of those limiting beliefs that we have in our heads. So today's Sack Your Limiting Beliefs is about what we can do and what we can do to help you and what you can even do by yourself.
This football thing is such a big deal, folks, that, I've been a lifelong football fan, but when Poppy and I got married 6 years ago, she insisted that we put in our wedding vows that I'd pledge my allegiance to her team.
I did.
Even though I'm from Cleveland, grew up a Browns fan, and then as a young adult, I lived in North Carolina and became a Panthers fan. Not a young adult, an older adult, a middle-aged adult, I should say. But when I got back with Poppy, she said, you're now a Green Bay Packers fan. And I even have a shirt, a Green Bay shirt that says that I'm married into this. Always gets a big rise out of people when we go to away games.
Actually, he has about 7 shirts, and I have 11.
2 jackets, 3 windbreakers.
Hats,
scarves.
Oh, and by the way.
Slippers I just got for Christmas.
When we were in Philly last month, We were there on business and
to see Jack Canfield.
We saw Jack Canfield, and we went to the Philadelphia Eagles versus Packers game. Well, Geoff almost got beaten up. Okay, we're not going to go into that now, but that was limiting beliefs. So this week's Sack Your Limiting Beliefs, and we're like bursting to share with you how much we loved our day with our master coach, Jack Canfield, best-selling author of Chicken Soup for the Soul. And did you know that he's a Guinness Book of World Record holders for the most books on the bestseller list at one time? And even as relational experts and coaches, we also need to tap into experience our own master coaches. So where should we start with all the insights and powerful ideas we learned from Jack?
Well, Jack took us through a whole variety of exercises from our day-long session with him. And one of the overarching messages we received is that most of our limiting thoughts are simply self-imposed.
Definitely.
And one of the exercises is one that Poppy and I have done for years and enjoy doing. And the purpose of this exercise illustrates what we believe we can do when we are, what we are actually capable of versus what we actually think we can do. And I'm going to take you through this right now. And this is assuming you're sitting in a room listening to this. If you're driving your car, you can't do this right now. So
please don't.
Save this one till later and come back to it if you're driving. But what I want you to do is to stand with your feet shoulder width apart. Now, hold out your right arm straight to your side. And with your feet still facing forward, I want you to turn and kind of twist to your right with your arm as far as you can. And you're going to be looking down your arm. And when you've reached as far as you can go, locate a spot on the wall where your arm is pointing. Remember that spot. Now, we'll have it locked in your memory. Okay? Now come back, bring your arm back to your side and face forward and relax. Now close your eyes for 20 seconds and imagine that spot beyond the wall, beyond that spot that you looked at before. Do you remember it at all? Do you remember what's beyond that spot? Okay, we want you to do your best to think about that space beyond that spot. We're going to pause for 20 seconds here, so just bear with the silence so you can think about that spot. Okay, welcome back. After 20 seconds, now you've done this, you can open your eyes and extend your right arm to the right again. Now I want you to turn as far as you can to the right, stretching as far as you can. And notice where your arm is, and notice if your gaze has shifted beyond the original spot on the wall.
Okay, I wish we could hear you. I know you're going, what? If you're like many of us and our clients, we've shared this with, you're way beyond where you were the first time. And your body is telling you, this is your little message, that you have way more potential than you're allowing yourself. And let's talk about this. In less than a minute, you changed a preconceived idea in your head and proved yourself wrong.
That's the thing with these limiting beliefs. We say that everyone we've worked with and they've done this exercise, they've gone at least 20 to 30 degrees farther than their first attempt, where they thought they could go in their head. And it's just so funny because you go, you twist and go, okay, I'm twisting as far as I can. Okay, that's as far as I can go. And it's just your body saying that's comfortable. You shouldn't go further. But when you think and you push and you extend your mind, you realize, wow, I can go so much further.
And that's what's so interesting is that you paused before the second attempt to realign your thoughts. You shifted your paradigm. You stretched your vision. And you actually visualized the possibilities of going further than you did the first time. So what do we say? Visualization is the primary driver to any kind of positive goal or result.
One of the ways in which Poppy and I use visualization is when individuals or couples are facing what we call a challenging wall in their relationships. It's a 6 o'clock moment we call on our patented communication tool, the emotional clock. The emotional clock is a device that helps people quickly identify and address where they are emotionally in any given situation. Oftentimes, we've discovered that people can't even imagine repairing what's wrong in their relationship or how to even begin to make the relationship better. Or they might have determined that they can't fix the relationship, but they can't imagine a world beyond that. They've become emotionally paralyzed by the limiting thoughts.
So when you work with us, we will help to bring your attention to thoughts and beliefs that you have and help you recognize all of the thoughts. We can work together step by step and look at those possibilities, look at those limiting beliefs that might trip you up, that might cause you to fumble, and help you visualize that what your different future scenarios might even look like. And while we're talking about what we do, we always share with people that as coaches and consultants, we are not therapists. One of our other master coaches, Dr. Dave Kruger, likens the distinction of therapists and coaches this way. He says, you know what? A therapist is kind of like an archaeologist, and a coach is more like an architect. So as coaches, we work with you and your desired goals to attain achievable, measurable results.
One of the things that we also always like to say is that there's absolutely nothing wrong with therapy. In fact, many times we've had folks who've spoken to us and shared where they are, and we realize that they really aren't in a position. They don't have their minds in a position where they've put these things behind them and they're prepared to move forward. And we say, probably working with a therapist is absolutely the right thing to do to get yourself in a position where you feel you are ready now to move forward.
Right. We share that with therapists many times, psychotherapists. So basically, we ask people to summon the courage to imagine a world beyond where you are. We took another gem from Jack Canfield. It was so much fun. And how to get rid of limiting beliefs. And we're going to share that with you now. When I did this exercise, and I've done it before, I imagine a time in my childhood, and I want to have you do the same thing. Maybe when you were 8, 9, or 10 years old. And think about a time when you chose a thought that really didn't serve you very well. Maybe you got a message from a parent, a teacher, a coach, a sibling, maybe somebody in your neighborhood. And sometimes these messages are spoken and sometimes they're unspoken. I know for me, mine was certainly not verbalized. For me, it was I thought I ought not to be too smart. My older brother was not a great student at the time in middle school and high school. Today, he's wonderful. He's very intelligent and smart. And so I kind of got the message, although no direct words were ever spoken, that I shouldn't be a high achiever. I shouldn't get really good grades. I mean, I know my parents would laugh at me if I were to ever have told them that I thought they wanted me to be subpar academically. But I got the message because I knew that grades and things with in our family were a source of conflict with my brother and my parents. And I didn't want to add to that conflict. So I made that, 9-year-old determination that just don't be too smart. So my 10-year-old mind didn't want to show up my older brother and risk the possibilities of comparisons. I mean, I've certainly heard that. So I made a low honor roll with mostly B's until my first year of college, where no one was watching, no one tisk-tissed about grades, nobody talked about it, and I easily made straight A's. And I'm like, what? So sometimes that early childhood limiting belief still creeps into my adult life today, and it might influence or inform my head with, don't be too smart, don't try hard to be accomplished at something. So this is something that I have to really recognize, be aware of, be very conscious of, and make sure that it doesn't impede our successful life.
Mm-hmm. And in that same vein, I too have had similar limiting thoughts. I was raised by incredibly loving and supportive parents who were also extremely practical, and that practical mindedness meant that you never chased huge dreams and goals because that would have required stepping out of comfort zones and taking big risks and doing unreasonable things and things that were very impractical. And I want to share with you something that I did back in 1999, a big sailing adventure. Many of you who know me know that I've been a lifelong sailboat racer, and something that I used to share with my brother. My brother Twig. In 1999, we took off to Crystal Lake, Michigan, a place that we vacationed as children.
And you were living where?
I was living in North Carolina.
And where
Charlotte.
was he living?
He was up, actually, that's right. He was in Connecticut. And he flew into Cleveland and met me there. I drove up from Charlotte, picked him up in Cleveland. We drove up into central Michigan where this little Crystal Lake was.
And I always love his adorable, I have the best mother-in-law, by the way. She's so sweet. What did she say to you?
You're going to do what? You're going to drive all the way up to Crystal, Michigan
just for a
sailboat race? That's just crazy.
It's not practical.
That's not practical. Are you sure you should do that? And I was like, well, something inside of me overrode Mom's very practical voice and said, yeah, that's something you should do. And it was the right thing to do at this time and take on a great adventure with my brother. And I am so glad that I did, because less than 2 years later, I lost my dear brother in the second tower of the World Trade Center on an event called 9/11.
Yeah, so that was like incredible. When our intuition is tapping at us, we need to listen and not let our brain override those thoughts. It's so important. Taking risks, getting out of our comfort zones, ignoring and expunging the little voices in our heads, or even the ones that aren't in our heads, like Aaron Rodgers, all those commentators. Joe Buck, if you're listening, you can like tone it down a little bit. And they attempt, those voices to hold us back from our potentials, and they need to be sacked. So are you ready to take a chance again?
Oh, what a great opening line you just gave me, Poppy. Poppy knows that I love to sing.
He's like a jukebox, okay?
There's sometimes there's certain songs that have to do with that topic, and one that I've enjoyed goes like this. You remind me I live in a shell, safe from the past and doing okay, but not very well. No jolts, no surprises, no crisis arises. My life goes along as it should. It's all very nice, but not very good.
And? I'm ready.
And I'm ready to take a chance again, ready to put my love on the line with you.
I love that. I always get goosebumps when he sings. I know, color me a big sap, right? I love those words. All very nice, but not very good. Those are some powerful words from Barry Manilow.
It speaks to taking chances and taking big risks, and there's no larger risk than love. I mean, one of the things we've talked about many times is that people, especially if you've had times in the past where things haven't gone right, haven't gone well for you, the idea of getting back and falling in love again and putting your heart out there again can be such a terrifying thought. And this was kind of one of the reasons that Poppy and I wrote the book that we wrote about our journey, about sweethearts in college that got separated for 32 years and re-find each other. And one of the things we like to share is the risk that I took and the kind of the simple courage it took to take a step that completely changed my life and both of our lives forever. All I did, folks, was to pick up a phone and make a call to Poppy. I thought about her one day and I said, gosh, whatever happened to this great gal that I was crazy about and madly in love with in college? And I found her phone number on her webpage, and I said, oh, what the heck, I'll just give her a call and we'll have a good laugh about the fact that we're both single now after a couple of marriages, and never in my wildest dreams, another song I won't do right now, but another song that we refer to, that I could put this right back together again and enjoy this wonderful relationship all over.
You know, and it reminds me, we've been coaching a client for about 8 weeks now, a young guy, close to 30, just starting a newish relationship. And every week he asks, what do you think I should do? And I was just going to share with you that my background as a psychology professor and as a Myers-Briggs certified facilitator, we really look at the nuances of personalities. And our client has a preference for introversion. So coming right out and saying exactly what he wants to express does not come as easily to him as others. It doesn't mean that he doesn't have those feelings. It just means that he's reluctant to expose himself that way. And we talked about vulnerability, I think, in the last podcast.
And many people are often very, very afraid, especially in new relationships, to ask harder questions, or, if they want to take a relationship to the next level or share how they feel. Gosh, I really like you a lot, and
right.
I really like to, have you be a steady, relationship with me. People get very gun shy about doing this, because what can happen, of course, they might get an answer they don't like. They might hear that person doesn't feel and doesn't have the same ideas, doesn't share the same thoughts. And we always tell people, though, if that is the case,
better to find out now.
It's better to find out now versus later. What would you rather do? Go on for another few months and get yourself more and more attached to this person to discover that they really don't feel that way?
So in our sessions with him, we work through the possible scenarios. We work through a rejection scenario, but we also work through the positivity, and we weighed the risk factor for him. And he felt relief immediately. It's like, well, how would you feel if you didn't make any kind of verbal commitment to this person? And he said, well, that would feel even worse than if I did and the other person rejected me. So we help him really get clear on the exact risks, identify what he wants to say. And
what happened when he actually said that?
Oh, it was great. And the feelings were also relieved, received well, returned. And I said, so did you feel relief? Oh, yeah. He said, going into it, I was nervous, but it absolutely felt relief. And I said, how do you think your relationship is, today after that? He said, oh, yeah, we're far more connected after taking that risk. So risk brings priceless rewards when you actually take the risk. And then one of the things that he said, and these are the nagging voices, these are the Joe Buck commentators and the Troy Aikman commentators that try and throw darts into your balloons. He said, all my buddies are telling me, don't text back right away, don't social message, don't Snapchat, don't Facebook personal message, don't do any of these things right away. Let it sit for a while. And he said, I'm just not that kind of guy. I don't like playing games. And we absolutely rewarded him and said, we absolutely agree with you. Do not play games for the sake of playing games. Just
for its own sake.
If you're at work and you're in the middle of something, obviously you don't want to text back right away. That isn't respectful to whomever you're working with. But at the same time, if she texts back and you're feeling it, absolutely text back. What have you got to lose? So, we had a good session. He went away with a big smile on his face. So we ask you, wonderful listeners, think about something in your life that's going on that might be influenced by thoughts that don't serve you well. Do you have anything that you can sack right now? Any beliefs that you can sack? And we also would ask if you're able to, not while you're driving, but if you take out a piece of paper or pull up notes on a mobile device and make a list of the limiting thoughts that you have. And then next to it, make a list of the shift that you can make to sack them. And we would believe that even this act alone can bring you some really well-deserved relief.
And that's what this all is about. And that's what, when you get beyond 6 o'clock on our emotional clock, that's the first thing you feel, is that feeling of relief, because you have done something. You've made a decision. You've moved forward. And
then we get to forgiveness and hopefulness and confidence and joy and love. And
love is the best one. That's the best part. Okay, folks. Well, next week we look forward to sharing with you how to reignite and keep your relationship thriving. We'll talk about taking your relationship from all very nice and not very good, as we sang about, to very nice and very, very good.
Okay, we're Poppy and Geoff Spencer, your relational experts. We thank you for sharing today's podcast, Sack Your Limiting Beliefs. We're off to Atlanta this weekend to cheer our Packers on.
Go Pack, go.
What we hope to be an NFC Championship victory, and then even maybe go to the Super Bowl. We won't be there, but we'll be there in spirit. So until next time, thanks for listening, and we welcome your comments at relationalexperts.com. Please share with us what limiting beliefs you have, from your list that you made. We'd love to have you weigh in on it and share with us how you challenged them and maybe it came out for the better. And if you're really stuck with something, if you have too many sacking beliefs, schedule a free 30-minute coaching session with us, and together we'll sack those persistent limiting beliefs. Thanks, y'all. Have a great week.
Thanks for joining us. Bye.
Bye.